Hey everybody, John Felt here. This is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for Memorial Day weekend, May 26, 2024. Let's take a few moments this weekend to keep in mind and thoughts our veterans, past and current. Anyway, we are in a transition from one weather regime to another. I'm going to talk about that in this briefing and the impacts it's going to have on our weather as we round out May and head into June. First off, I'd like to start off by focusing on our weather risk this week. Severe storms today, and that will be moving into the eastern U.S. tomorrow, Memorial Day. We're going to be looking at some very heavy rain over parts of the Ohio River Valley and then into parts of Texas and Oklahoma. We're also going to be talking about very high heat risk over parts of Texas this week. Now, last week, once again, widespread severe storm activity over the central U.S. And what's sort of interesting this season is that track has been right into a typical classic tornado alley of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. We haven't seen that the last couple of years, so we're back to more of a classic spring, very active classic spring. And we've had many tornadoes this spring. I'll be putting a summary on that out maybe this week. And you can see all the tornadoes last week. Unfortunately, we had a very devastating tornado in Greenfield, Iowa. EF4, those are very rare, and unfortunately, multiple fatalities. Last week, we also had really heavy rain over the central U.S., extending from Texas and Louisiana right through the middle part of the nation up through the Midwest. Iowa got clobbered with lots of heavy rain. In these ag regions, and I will also probably discuss an update on the ag regions this week or next, but that is going to have some issues with soggy fields, inundation in fields. But in the long term, we've set the stage, I think, for a positive seasonal yields in many areas once this settles down, if it doesn't continue, because our soil moisture profiles are going to be in really good shape. We also had some heavy rain up in Montana and then higher elevations and the coastal Pacific Northwest. Now, temperatures last week were cool in the west. That's the areas of blue and purple, and unusually mild or warm in the east. And look at Texas down here. These are 10 degrees warmer than normal. And when we look at the hottest temperatures of the week, look at this. This is 100 degrees here. This is 90 degrees. So we're getting 90 degrees in a large area and 100 degrees as well. And remember, the last couple of weeks, I've been pointing out how the Southwest, Texas, and Central and South Florida are prone to this unusual heat right through the summer months. Okay, so what we have here right in the central U.S. is where the action is going to be. This system here produced the severe storm activity this weekend, and it's going to be moving to the east. Now, I talked about the high heat in Texas, but we also have high humidity, 75 to 80 degree dew points. And you combine that with temperatures over 100 degrees, and it is oppressive down in parts of South Texas. That moisture is also giving a summer-like feel over large parts of the southern tier of the U.S., from Texas and Oklahoma all the way into the southeast. Now, I mentioned this transition, and in a post last week, I talked about how a Pacific Ridge, this blue regime, has been in place for a number of weeks now. That's a ridge of high pressure in the Pacific Ocean region, and we're transitioning into a trough of low pressure in the Pacific Ocean. And what that's going to do is change our pattern quite a bit. That Pacific Ridge was associated with severe weather. There's our Pacific Ridge, and that produced all the severe weather over the month of May. But first of all, this is by Wednesday. Look at this ridge of high pressure, this area of high pressure, dome of high pressure, heat dome over the south central U.S. Now, by June 3rd, what we have is this area of high pressure pushing over the western U.S. So this area that's been cool is going to become quite warm. And then the eastern U.S. is going to be cooler, Midwest into the east. Now, let's take a look at that as far as temperatures. Here's the cooler air pushing in, and then we're we're sort of transitioning here as we get into this week. And then by next week, what we have, this is the first week in June, we have unusually warm air in this region, and that's an area that's generally been cooler. And then we have much cooler air. This is going to be a pleasant type weather this time of year over the eastern U.S., central and east. So we're transitioning along with that North America weather regime transition. We're going to transition our temperature. So the Pacific Northwest is going to go from cool to warm, and good parts of the central and eastern U.S. are going to go from warm to normal or below normal. Okay, so that's, I wanted to show you here from north to south the big changes. Laredo, Texas today, 110. Can you imagine that with a dew point of 78? I sure can. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that. And even after it cools down a bit with quotes there, it's still going to be above 100. Minneapolis, on the other hand, is going to get that cooler air pushing in, and it's going to be only highs near 70 and lows in the 40s. So as far as the precipitation goes and the severe weather threat, it's going to be along this stationary front, and it's going to be moving west to east. And then later in the week, midweek, we're going to have another area of heavy rain develop along the stationary front in Texas and Oklahoma. So that means as far as rainfall goes, we are looking at really heavy rain in Texas and Oklahoma this week. Another area of rain over some saturated ground in this region. So I think the two areas, this is where we could get some significant flooding, especially on tributaries and flash flood potential. And then another area right through here in this upcoming week. And this area has been really wet, so this is also going to be resulting in some flooding. Now, if we look at week 2 here, I wanted to show you how this area in the west is unusually warm and unusually dry, and the precipitation generally sags down to the south. So this is week 2 outlook. That cooler air gradually recedes in week 2, and I would say this is more closer to normal or maybe a little bit above normal. So again, that's our Memorial Day forecast. Let's keep our veterans in our thoughts this weekend, and I'll be talking with you again next weekend. Take care.